Man, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of EOS. It's 10 out of J. Man, I'm rocking with y'all rocking with me. And for this video, we're going to be speaking on a Louisiana rapper who traveled for an hour just to knock on his op's door and blow him down with an AR-15.
Balloons, candles, and bullet holes in the door of apartment 6 at the Union Point housing complex in Bogalusa are reminders of what happened early Monday morning.
Thought maybe I can come to Bogalusa and lay low a little bit, and apparently they followed him here.
Monday, June 7th, 2021, in the early morning hours. There was a knock on the door in an apartment within the Sunset Acres housing complex in Bogalusa, Louisiana. A 19-year-old rapper named Michael Brock, more commonly known as Brazzy 3 Times, was inside of the apartment, hiding out. Originally from Kentwood, Louisiana, roughly an hour away, he was staying with a girlfriend's relative after receiving multiple death threats in his hometown by rival gangs and rappers. He was laying low, moving cautious, but decided to answer the knock at the door. He was met with over 10 rounds from an AR-15 blowing holes through the front door and traveling through his body. He wasn't alone in the apartment. A 7-year-old child along with others were inside at the time, the 7-year-old witnessing the entire shooting, but he was the only one shot, dying from his injuries. The shooter jumped in a getaway car driven by another man, and it wouldn't take long for investigators to identify the suspects. Warrants went out for 19-year-old Taj Taplin, who was identified as the shooter, and 19-year-old Cordavion White, the driver. Both men were further identified as part of a rap group faction called the Fours, and Cordavion is said to have ties with the Gangsta Disciples hailing from Chicago. Now, Taj is more commonly known as the rapper 4WAYOG, who linked up and did a song with Young and Ace earlier in the year. But back to the victim, Brazzy 3 Times. It doesn't take long watching his videos to see him cracking fours and dissing the fours who are believed to be the same rappers pushing out death threats through their own music. Brazzy 3 Times was identified as a member of the 313 rap group, the obvious rival to the Fours, and the two groups would go back and forth through music and shootouts. So much that 4WAYOG would allegedly drive an hour away to knock on his op's door and blow the fucking house down like the big bad wolf with an AR-15. As the arrest warrants went out, a manhunt took place in parts of Louisiana and Texas where the two men were said to have been hiding out. On June 10th, 3 days after the murder, Chambers County sheriffs east of Houston, Texas, pulled over a 2017 Nissan Maxima with a Mississippi license plate for a traffic violation. The driver falsely identified himself as Tommy Butler, while the passenger was identified as Taj Taplin. The driver was asked to exit the vehicle when deputies became suspicious. A record check showed Taj, or 4WAYOG, was wanted out of Bogalusa, Louisiana for second-degree murder and was noted to be armed and dangerous with violent tendencies. When the driver realized they were about to arrest 4Way, he told 4Way to go. It was at that time 4Way jumped in the driver's seat and took off, taking the Texas sheriffs on a high-speed chase towards Beaumont. But the chase was called off after sheriffs deemed it too dangerous to keep after him, being that he was putting lives in danger of escaping at reckless high speeds. Not only that, but he tried to ram multiple patrol cars along the way. He'd make it roughly an hour and a half away, crossing back into Louisiana, before being taken into custody in Lake Charles, where he was arrested by state police, who found a gun inside of the vehicle. Both men are now facing charges stemming from the escape in Texas, as well as a second-degree murder charge in Louisiana. And this case was investigated by multiple law enforcement agencies, including the feds, who are most likely all over the fact that 4WAYOG took police on a high-speed chase across state lines with a gun in the car. The questions that haven't been answered is, how did 4Way know where Brazzy was hiding out at? How did he find out about Brazzy's girlfriend's relative who lived an hour away? And how were police able to so quickly identify the shooter and the driver? Either witnesses saw everything, or someone's been saying too much. A 19-year-old rapper is gone, while 2 other 19-year-olds face the possibility of life without parole in the Louisiana State Prison. Now, you can say what you want, but 4WAYOG was dedicated. And I mean, I feel like a lot of these dudes that are rappers really aren't rappers. They're killers that rap, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Because if you take the drama out of the equation, right? If you sit a lot of these dudes down, you're like, listen, I feel like you got a talent, but I want to test that talent. I want to hear you talk without ops, without dissing. I just want to hear you rap. You feel me? Like, just do a song where you're just rapping. I don't think half of their ass really can, to be honest with you, because it's like that's where the momentum, the inspiration comes from, the violence and the deaths. We're gonna slide on them, we're gonna kill them. And nowadays it seems that people are more impressed by the disrespect than the actual bars and hooks within the music, if that makes sense. It isn't the metaphors that people are catching on to, it's how disrespectful can you be. And all that does is just, fuel the fire. It makes people want to kill each other. They're becoming famous off of getting arrested and getting charged with bodies, beating bodies. That's a whole badge of honor in itself. And it leads to situations like these where you got these young ass dudes going after each other, trying to kill each other. And I'm sure if these two weren't caught and they actually did this shit, a whole diss song would have came out pretty much reliving the entire fucking story. And the police would have been able to put two and two together because, you can't snitch on paperwork, but you can snitch on songs and it's acceptable. Now, what do I think is gonna happen? I feel like if the feds are involved in the investigation, these multiple agencies are involved, they must know a decent amount. They must have a decent amount of evidence. Whoever told them who the shooter and the driver was, you could tell that there's a lot of shit up against them. I don't know why that information wasn't released. And if they can secure a conviction, they're not really gonna worry about the Texas charges. The feds aren't really gonna worry about a gun charge because the murder charge punishment exceeds everything. And they're gonna want them to get hit with the worst punishment. So they're gonna go through the Louisiana courts, however that works, the parish, I don't know. And if they get found guilty, they're gonna end up in Angola. And that's a fucked up spot to be at. If you haven't heard about Angola, the prison in Louisiana that used to be a slave farm back in the day, that shit's fucked up. But to be honest, the whole situation of going to somebody's address, knocking on their door, it just reminded me of Young Pappy lyrics, the rapper from Chicago that passed away. That motherfucker was snapping. If he was still alive, I feel like he would have took over the rap game. But hey, it's another crazy ass situation, another crazy ass story. I'll keep y'all updated if anything comes out. I'm sure it's not over between the 4s and the 313s, and it's an ongoing dispute. We'll see what happens. But hey, it's 1090 J. I'm rocking with y'all and y'all rocking with me. Till next time.